know why people do this. So this 1988 KTM 350 here, when I bought it, I knew it needed a top end, but I took the flipping piston out of it, so you don't actually know which piston it had in it first. Anyway, the head looks reasonable. It looks as though it's leaked a bit of water. It's going to need flattening down, which you can do on a flat plate or a piece of glass. A bit of fine sandpaper, emery paper, whatever you call it. But the so because there's no piston in it, when you try and turn the engine over, it hits the exhaust port, the conrod hits the exhaust port. Anyway, it does turn over. I just wanted to just double check what the situation was, but it may well need re-nikasilling. You probably, or possibly, depending on what measuring equipment you've got, if you've got decent measuring equipment, you might be able to measure it, mark it up properly to find the correct piston to go in there. Like I say, it's a nikasil bore, so you may need nikasilling. You may want to send the barrel off to a place that do nikasil, and they might match a piston up for you. They have definitely got the right kind of measuring equipment. Anyway, I just wanted to just show you that just before going through the rest of the bike, because that is the bit that's wrong with it, and obviously it'd be nice to know what the situation is in there. So like I say, it does turn over, but when you're bringing it back up, the rod hits the exhaust port, and you don't have the original piston, so you don't know exactly what size it was or what status it was or anything like that. There you go. It's funny how things go, isn't it? I don't know whether it's how I loaded them in storage or what, but just at the minute, every single bike I'm touching doesn't seem to be capable of running or whatever. And then when I look at it, other than the RM that I looked at earlier, well, actually, other than the RM I looked at earlier and the CR125 that I looked at yesterday, the bikes are in a state that I kind of knew about. Now, I have a feeling that I'd got it in my head that this one wasn't in that state, and I have this way of doing that, I suppose. I always think that the bikes that I've bought are mega and they're going to turn up and they're going to ride amazing and blah blah blah, and just unfortunately that's not always the case. So this one, I got to it and I pushed down on the kickstart. It's like, it's not turning over, this. It's not turning over. It's like, it's proper odd. Because this was a bike that I thought was going to be a pretty good one, really. I got this down as a 1989 KTM 300, and I probably should have looked into that in a bit more detail. My memory doesn't always serve me right, but they didn't do a 300 back then. And then when I've had a look at the frame number, KTMs always start, the first two digits of the frame number denote the year. So this one starts 88. So it's a 1988, could be an 89 model, but it's a 1988 bike. And then I've had a look at the engine number, and it begins 555. Just give me a second, let me just, yeah, 555. So the 555 denotes that this is a 350cc two-stroke liquid cooled motor. So it's a 1988 350 LC, and I'm going to say it's in Enduro trim. So it's the Enduro model. So it's not the MXC. I believe it'll be the DXC. I'm not hugely up on the model numbers of KTM. They elude me a little bit at this age. So now this will be classed as an EXC, but I think back then it was a DXC. So like a dual sport cross country bike really is what it's classed as. Anyway, you'll have already seen, so turned out the motor wasn't seat. I had to just have a look at it just to see, because it was like, oh, I'm sure this flipping thing ran. Anyway, when I went back through my messages of when I bought it, no, it didn't run. It needed a top end, and I thought, oh yeah, but it's seized. It doesn't need a top end. It needs a bottom end as well. Anyway, turns out that the flipping conrod had got itself stuck into the exhaust port. So it wasn't seized, it was just stuck. So then when I took the head off, and there was no gasket on the head, by the way, so there's no gasket on the head, and a couple of the other things that I've looked at, there was no gasket on. I've not taken them off, but I've just noticed that there doesn't appear to be any gasket there. So yeah, when I took the head off, I noticed there was no piston in there, and the conrod was stuck in the exhaust port, so I just managed to just push that back down, and then the engine then rotates. So it does need a piston. It'll probably need re-nikasilling, and it's going to need the top end rebuild. I was slightly earlier models, and I didn't know exactly when it changed on these. The clutch covers used to be magnesium, and I have a feeling that the crankcases on these are magnesium. I'm sure to say somewhere, unless I'm losing my mind, which is always possible. Anyway, I wanted to take the water pump cover off this bike to just see what the inside of the water pump was like. But the clutch cover on this, when I took the water pump cover off, the little drain bolt that goes into the water pump cover is missing, but that should be an easy thing to replace. Took the water pump cover off. There's no gasket on that either, but the clutch cover is all aluminium, so there's no, it's not corroded. But what there was in there was the impeller, so the little impeller that spins around and moves the water around. That was just in a million pieces, so I've taken that plastic piece out. So you're going to need a new impeller as well. There will be other things on this bike that you'll need too, but super cool thing. Would have been a mega enduro bike back in the day, and would be great for Vinduros now. And a lot of people I know, even when they buy bikes that look mega, they strip the engine down just to make sure that the engine is as it is supposed to be. And anyway, this engine does need doing. To what level you want to go to do it is entirely up to you, but definitely going to need a piston. I would say it probably needs nikasilling, and I would just check the other bits and pieces out, and then it will be a mega thing. So it didn't come with a US title, this bike, so you would need to get it dated. So KTM importer or an owners club will be able to do that for you. Probably just a regular KTM dealer would be able to do that as well, to be perfectly honest. And then, so once you've had it dated, it's got a Nova certificate with it, so it's had its duty paid on it. Once you've done that, at this age you would need to get an MOT to get it registered, and then you can send off your V55 5 form to the DVLA, pay your road tax, and pay your £55 first licensing fee, and then it would come back normally within a few weeks. It was taking quite a long time during COVID, but those days are over now, and things are starting to get back to normal. So let's have a little bit of a closer look at her. You should have seen before I started talking to the camera the little video of the conrod going up and down inside the barrel. So I'm not going to be turning it over with the kickstart. I am going to do the gearbox check, but obviously we're not going to get the bike running. We're not going to ride it. We're just going to have a look at its overall general condition, and then she can be up for sale, and one lucky person will be able to get themselves a 350cc 2-stroke enduro bike, Vinduro bike, trail bike, whatever you'd want to use it for, which could be a flipping amazing trail or enduro weapon. Absolutely. You know what they say, there's no replacement for displacement, and that's absolutely so true with enduros and trail riding, and this bike would be super good. I know it would, once it's been fettled a little bit. There we go. So first thing you'll probably notice, seat could do with being recovered. Plastics don't look amazing. It's got this nasty foam in the airbox. Don't know off the top of my head what it would have been like from the factory, but would be unusual to just have this completely open, although that is what looks to be a genuine factory design, but maybe you'd want to put something else in there, you know, to protect it from any water that you might go through when you're trail riding or doing enduros. The water can be pretty devastating if it gets through the carb, as we all know. It's happened to me personally. But they went through some water, thought everything was all right, going flat out down a main road, and the thing nipped up at 70 mile an hour, chucked me off. Slid down the road, bike flipping cartwheeled several times, and managed to luckily miss some oncoming cars. Anyway, managed to get back up, got it unseized, and went back to my van. So the engine's looking pretty dirty, but I'm sure it'll clean up. If you're doing some work to it, then that'd be neither here nor there, really. The frame rails I haven't looked at as yet. There's a dent there. I don't know if you can see where obviously someone's hit a rock or something. You'd normally find a sump guard or whatever on an enduro bike, but doesn't appear to have had one. So there's that dent in there. Someone would be able to get that out. That radiator looks a little bit wavy. There are some radiator guards that are cable tied to the front mud guard. The front wheel, the forks, these look like a very, very, very good set of forks, to be honest. They're upside down forks. I'd probably be recommending that you do the fork seals as a matter of course, but they don't look as though they've been leaking to me. Front wheel has had a bit of action there, slightly bent, and then as we go around, the rest of that side of the wheel looks to be okay. This side of the wheel here, I did think I'd spotted a flat spot on it when I was doing the video, but I can't see that now. Oh, there we go, there. Flat spot there, fractionally flat. This fork, again, all looks good. Doesn't appear to have been leaking, but would recommend doing the fork seals. Front brake disc is pretty rusty, but I've not been able to check that because the front brake master cylinder here, the glass is perished and fallen out of it. So you're either going to need to find a new master cylinder. Well, yeah, you are going to need to find a new master cylinder, without a doubt. We don't know if it sparks, but I would assume it does. It's a good a good ignition system, a motor plant ignition system on this. Like I say, this side of the engine's looking pretty good as well. White power rear shock. The bump stop seems to be pretty perished, and whether it's been leaking or not, I'm not entirely sure, but I'd probably recommend getting that serviced. The rear brake, there doesn't seem to be a lot of feel to it, so I would suggest at least seal kit or whatever. It needs a look at. I mean, it's pretty much the whole bike needs a good looking at, really. I have a feeling that this would have been for a stand, but it looks as though, yeah, it looks as though it was for a stand, but it also looks as though there would have been a position for a stand here as well, and that's now not been in use, so not sure exactly. Exhaust is pretty battered down at the front here. Could have that blown out or get a new pipe for it. It'd be worthwhile doing. The silencer looks all right, but the link between the silencer and the expansion chamber is pretty rusty, so whether you just want to blast that off and have it painted or whatever, I'm not sure. That would be your personal preference. We don't know whether the electrics are working. I would suspect that they're not. I would suspect that you'd need to do a bit of a rear wire job on this bike. The rear wheel, don't know what that noise is there. Rear wheel looks straight to me on that side, and looks straight on that side too. There's some scuff marks, whether it's hit something or whether that was from a bad tyre change, I don't know. But it wouldn't stop me running it, to be honest, especially not if I was going to use it as an actual enduro bike. I'd run that maybe until it gets worse or whatever. But there we go. Let's quickly do the gearbox check, and then we'll stick her outside and get a few pictures of her. Okay, so I'm not going to turn the engine over very much while it's in gear, because I don't want that conrod hitting the exhaust port. So we're in neutral at the minute, and we're down into first, up into second, third, fourth, fifth, and that's the top of the gearbox is fifth, so back into fourth, third, second, and back into neutral. So there we go. Gearbox check done. Can't test it under load, obviously, unless I rebuilt the engine, which is not a job for me. So I'll just get some pictures of her. There we have it, one 1988 KTM 350, what I believe to be a DXC, which is the enduro bike. Make a fantastic resto project, something a little bit different to your CR500s and your CR250s and that, and it'd be a cool enduro bike to have. Even be a very cool flipping Evo motocross bike to have. There's certainly not many people that have got these, and the 350 two-stroke would be a fantastic step up from a 250 in terms of power, but not as far up as the 500, the widow makers, as some people call them. It would be a great race bike, I think. Flipping silly boy. I've been calling that bike a 350 DXC all this time. I got it off some KTM Penton model identification website. It's a flipping 350 GS, and I should have known that. In fact, I do know that. It's a 350 GS, which is the enduro bike. That's what it is. It's not a DXC at all. What a muppet. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search Phoenix Motos.